but even including that $400 million a year, which they would be reporting if they were independent, and we don't report because we bought them and there's a purchase amortization charge. Even without that, they are below what I would anticipate by a fair margin within a year or two. That's the present expectation on my part. Charlie?
No, I don't have any.
You'll have that question for me next year. I think I'll be giving you a different answer. Okay, station 7.
Good morning, Mr. Buffett, Mr. Munger. My name is JC. I am 11 years old and I come from China. This is my second year at the meeting. Mr. Munger, it's great to see you again after the Daily Journal meeting in February. Mr. Buffett, you mentioned that the older you get, the more you understood about human nature. Could you elaborate more about what you've learned? And how can the differences of human nature help you make a better investment? I would also like Mr. Munger to comment on that, please. Thank you very much.
Well, you should wait for Charlie's answer because he's even older. He can tell you more about being old than I can even. It's absolutely true that virtually any yardstick you use, I'm going downhill. And if I would take a SAT test now and you could compare it to a score of when I was in my early 20s, I think it'd be quite embarrassing. And it's certainly, Charlie and I can give you a lot of examples, and there's others we won't tell you, about how things decline as you get older. But I would say this: it's absolutely true, in my view, that you can and should understand human behavior better as you do get older. You just have more experience with it, and I don't think you can read. Charlie and I read every book we could on every subject we were interested in, when we were very young, and we learned an enormous amount just from studying the lives of other people. But I don't think you can really. I don't think you can get to be an expert on human behavior at all by reading books, no matter what your IQ is, no matter who the teacher is. And I think that you really do learn a lot about human behavior. Sometimes you have to learn it by having multiple experiences. I actually think despite all the other shortcomings, and I can't do mental arithmetic as fast as I used to, and I can't read as fast as I used to, but I do think that I know a lot more about human behavior than I did when I was 25 or 30.
If you want one mantra, it comes from a Chinese gentleman who just died, Lee Kuan Yew, who was the greatest nation builder probably that ever lived in the history of the world. And he said one thing over and over and over again all his life: figure out what works and do it. You just go at life with that simple philosophy from your own national group, you will find it works wonderfully well. Figure out what works and do it.
And figuring out what works means figuring out how other people behave.
Of course.
And Charlie and I have seen the extremes in human behavior and in so many unexpected ways. And
now we get it every night.
Yeah.
Extremes of human behavior.
Yeah.
All we got to do is turn on the television.
Yeah. I'm glad he used that example. Okay, Becky?
Warren, you mentioned in response to an earlier question that Ajit and Greg are both here to answer questions, and so I thought I'd ask this question that comes from Will in Seattle. He says his question is for Mr. Ajit Jain and Mr. Warren Buffett. You have said that you communicate regularly about unconventional insurance contracts that expose the company to extremely unlikely but highly costly events. I'm curious about how you think about and safely price these unconventional insurance contracts. What analyses and mental checks do you run through your head to make sure that Berkshire Hathaway will profit without being unduly exposed to catastrophic risk? Furthermore, Mr. Buffett, would you want a future CEO to continue a similarly close collaboration with the chief underwriter?
We will get a microphone to Ajit and a spotlight in just a second. And there he is. Ajit, why don't you answer first if you'd like to?
Hi. Obviously, the starting point, I mean, these situations where there's not enough risk, not enough data to hang our hat on, it's more of an art than a science. We start off with as much science as we can use, looking at historical data that relates to the risk in particular, or something that comes close to relating to the risk that we're looking at. And then beyond that, if there's not enough historical data we can look at, then clearly we have to make a judgment in terms of what are the odds of something like that happening. We absolutely, in situations like that, we absolutely make sure we cap our exposure so that if something bad happens or if we got something wrong, we absolutely know that how much money we can lose and whether we can absorb that loss without much pain to the income statement or the balance sheet. In terms of art, it's a difficult situation. More often than not, it's impossible to have a point of view, and we end up passing on it. But every now and then, we think we can get a price where the subjective odds we have of something like that happening has a significant margin of safety in it. So we feel it's a risk that's worth taking. And then finally, the absolute acid test is I pick up the phone and call Warren and say, Warren, here's the deal. What do you think? Okay. Your turn, Warren.
Okay.
It's not easy, and you wouldn't want just anybody doing it for you.
No. No. In fact, the only one I would want doing it for us on the kind of things we have sometimes received is Ajit. I mean, it's that simple. There isn't anybody like him. And as Ajit said, we'll look at a worst case, but we are willing, if we like the odds, and like you say, there's no way to look these up. We can tell you how many, or how many 6.0 or greater earthquakes have happened in the last 100 years in Alaska or California and so on. And there's a lot of things you can look up figures on. Now, sometimes those are useful and sometimes they aren't, but there's a lot where you can get a lot of data. And then there's others that, well, after 9/11, was that going to be the first of several other attacks that were going to happen very quickly? There were planes flying that couldn't land in Hong Kong, as I remember. I think it was Cathay Pacific. Couldn't land in Hong Kong the following Monday unless they had a big liability coverage placed with somebody. I mean, the world had to go on. The people that held mortgages on the Sears Tower and all of a sudden wanted a coverage, or I think that actually was one, but they were just pouring in people that hadn't been worried about something a week earlier, and now they were worried about things involving huge sums. And there were really only a couple people in the world that would even listen and had the capacity to take on a lot of the deals we were proposed. And there's no book to look up. So there's a big element of judgment. Ajit and I mean, Ajit's 100 times better at this than I am, but we do tend to think alike on this sort of thing. You don't want to think too much alike, but we think alike. I've got a willingness to lose a lot of money. And virtually every insurance company, if they get up to higher limits, they've got treaties in place and they can only take this much. So the world was paralyzed on that. We don't get those now, obviously, but we do occasionally get inquiries about doing things that really nobody else in the world can do.